the Laws of Ascension Chapchicks, first lesson. Students, the professor says loudly after standing up. His voice silences the few who were still talking. I thank you for making it on time today. My name is Professor Elowyn Vale, and I'll be teaching your Law 101 class. Here we will cover the basics of laws. Though this is a beginner law class, we will not be going over learning laws. Each of you has either already comprehended a law or two of your teammates have. As such, they will guide you through comprehending your first laws instead. The professor says before walking over to the chalkboard. He starts writing on it before speaking again. First, we're going to start with the basics of the basics. What is magic? He says while writing that question on the board. He then turns around and points to a student at random. You, what is magic? Describe it for me, he says, causing the student to stand up. She's in the front row and has a brown ponytail. Magic is the power we gain from comprehending laws. The exact power we get varies depending on both law and person. Laws are what we call the power that exists in nature. They can be found and comprehended in their natural element. Fire can be studied from any natural flame, water from lakes, wind from the air, and so on and so forth. Magic can be used in two different forms. The first is from spells that come to us when we comprehend laws. The second is from manipulating the laws directly. She says, correct. Can you give me an example of manipulating a law? The professor asks. Yes, sir. The easiest example would be from yesterday. The headmaster comprehends a plant-type law. The chairs, stage, and table from yesterday were all made from his vines. He created these vines by manipulating his law. Another example would be someone who comprehends the law of water, filling a cup with water from their fingertips. She says, causing the professor to nod approvingly. Excellent. Thank you very much. The professor says before she sits back down. Now, as your classmate said, there are two types of magic. But unlike manipulating laws, spells can only be cast once you've learned them. You can learn a spell once your comprehension reaches a certain point. For example, mages who comprehend the law of fire can learn the fireball spell once they reach 30%. Or in other words, once they become a 7th-tier lesser mage. Now, does anyone know a spell they can cast for me? The professor asks before looking around. No one stands or raises their hands, so Vera grabs Lorik's arm. She holds it up above him, causing him to sigh. Then come on down and demonstrate for us. The professor says with a smile. Lorik walks down the steps to the front of the class. He reaches out with his hand and a magic circle appears. The same phantom wolf head appears from it. It bites down again, causing a few of the nearby students in the front to jump in their seats. Will that do? Lorik asks as the professor nods happily. Lorik turns around to return to his seat, but is stopped by the professor. As you all saw, magic spells will come from a corresponding magic circle. The size of the circle will determine the size of the spell. Some spells can be adjusted to be bigger or smaller too. Now, normally you'd have to chant the name of the spell to cast it. But if you do meet a few certain conditions, you can cast it without a chant like your classmate here. Would you be so kind to tell them what those conditions are? The professor asks. First, you need to understand your law. It's not just comprehending it. You need to study it deeper. The level of understanding needed varies for spells and law, so the mage needs to do it to understand it. Secondly, you need to understand the spell itself. This can be done by studying the magic circle. Once a spell is understood and can be cast without a chant, the spell's power will typically increase. It'll also become easier to cast it and adjust the soul power needed to do so. Lorik explains. Perfect. Thank you for your help, the professor says before letting Lorik return to his seat. Now that we've covered spells and magic, let's talk about law bloodlines and race laws. Princess Seraphina, would you tell the class what a law bloodline is? The professor asks, causing Sarah to stand up. Yes, sir. Law bloodlines refer to bloodlines that carry laws. The royal family's blood carries the law of golden light. As such, I was able to comprehend that law by simply meditating. There are other families that carry law bloodlines as well. The most commonly known would be the Hammerfell family. They contain the law of melted metal and have used it to become renowned blacksmiths. Sarah explains before sitting down. That's right, and law bloodlines are unique to humans. Demons don't seem to have these bloodlines. However, that's not to say they don't have their own traits. Vera, can you tell us how demons comprehend laws? Yes, Vera replies while standing up. Demons can comprehend laws easier than humans do, but we're more limited in our choices. Humans seem to be able to choose any laws they want, but demons can only learn from a few. We get the ability to sense a few laws when we turn 18. We have to choose a law from these ones. We aren't able to learn any other laws, but it's much easier for us to comprehend them than humans. It takes the average demon a month or two to comprehend their law after turning 18. Vera explains. Right. And for us humans, you're considered a genius if you can comprehend a law in 2 months, 3 months is above average, and 4 is the norm. The professor explains before looking across the class. He then explains what law echelons are and the levels of a mage. After that, he moves on to meditation. Meditation is what allows us to comprehend our law after it's entered our body. It's slow, though, but reliable. However, the best way to comprehend a law is to either use it in battle or enter its environment. The best example is that those who study water-based laws will best comprehend it while submerged in water. Fire laws will be best comprehended surrounded by flames, but they have to contain that law. Of course, this is easier said than done, especially when you have a law like the law of glass. Do you kids know how expensive glass containing that law is? The professor says, causing the students to laugh. Anyway, meditation will be the best way for you to comprehend your laws for now. It also helps to recharge your soul power, so take advantage of that when you need to. The professor adds before the bell rings. Time really flies, huh? Anyway, go on. I'm sure you're all excited to check the task center. The professor adds before the students start leaving. That class took forever, Rowan says as their team leaves. I enjoyed it. It was nice not having to ask questions all the time. Vera says, causing Lorik to chuckle. Are you ready to meet our master? We can swing by the dorm if you want first. Sarah asks. I'm ready, Lorik says as Vera nods. Then let's go, Rowan says before they leave the main building. They walk down the path leading out of the academy. There's a large fence made of metal that's 10 feet tall surrounding the academy. 2 guards stand at the ready outside the gates. Off to take care of your first task? One of the guards asks with a smile as they leave. Not quite. We have someone to meet first, Sarah replies as they leave. She leads them down the sidewalk toward the castle. The academy is right next to the castle. They're a 15-minute walk from one another. Some knights guard a path leading to the castle. They let them in after Sarah introduces herself. I didn't think the castle would be this close. It's a little surprising, Vera says as they walk down the path. Trees cover both sides of the path. They have blue leaves and are illusion trees. They're planted to trick intruders into leaving the castle. The reason they don't work on Sarah and the others is because she's carrying a talisman. It's made from the tree's bark and keeps her and anyone close to her safe from the illusions. Once they're past the trees, they come to the back of the castle. Sarah enters through a side door and leads them in. Inside, they're in a hall with a red carpet. There are paintings hung up every so often along with potted plants. The plants are exotic and exude a breath of law. Each plant contains its own law, though it's not strong enough to be used to comprehend the law. Sarah leads them down the hall and up some stairs. She enters a room and holds the door open for them. Inside is a large white marble room. There's an open wall leading to a balcony to their left. 2 couches are facing each other on their right. In the far corner is a pool table and a table for cards and other games. In the center of the room is a small circular table. There are 8 seats there, and 2 of them are occupied. One of them is occupied by King Eldrin Selthar. The other is occupied by a woman. She's wearing a stained white military uniform. It's stained with dirt and blood. She has short purple hair and light purple eyes. Sarah and Rowan sit down and the other 2 follow suit. Lorik's eyes don't leave the woman ever since he first lays eyes on her. What's with that intense stare? She asks Lorik with a smile as they sit. You're dangerous, he replies, causing her to smile wider. She lets out an amused laugh before speaking again. What makes you say that? Instincts, Lorik replies matter-of-factly. Well, I am Vera Ashthorn. It's nice to meet you, Vera says after a tense moment of silence. You too. My name is Cyrilda Ironheart. The woman replies, Lorik Bolt, nice to meet you too, Lorik says before tearing his eyes off Cyrilda. I imagine you two are wondering why I asked Sarah and Rowan to bring you here. For the past few years, I've been teaching and training them. As you are now part of their team, I wanted to offer to do the same for you. She says while looking at Vera and Lorik. Why would you do that? Lorik asks. For a few reasons. First of all, it's not a bad idea to help out the Ashthorn demons. We are neighbors, so we'd like to keep friendly relations with them. But mainly it's because you're on their team. If Rowan and Sarah grow stronger than you, it'll make their school life harder. So in order to prevent them from having to carry you, no offense of course, I'd like to train you along with them. But it's going to be difficult for me to do so. I've only heard of the law of destruction, you comprehend, Vera. And since your law is a completely new one, I can't even begin to plan a training regimen for you, Lorik. Cyrilda explains before smiling. So do you two want to join Rowan and Sarah as my disciples?